operationalizing the Public Procurement Act, which was assented to by President Cyril Ramaphosa 2 years ago. It's intended to replace the Public Procurement Framework Act, and under the proposed regulations, part of the first major reform is around exactly that, whether or not there is that local production within companies. The other story that they're going with on the front page of the Business Day, in fact, it's two other stories. The state weighs more private involvement at airport, and also draft AI policy raises questions for businesses. Looking at the front page of the Citizen this morning, this particular paper is going with a story around a monument to waste. And the headline there reads, "It's a sick reality of government across the spectrum." And this is around low-cost housing developments that have been abandoned and that have been vandalized. Right? No doors, no roofs or even windows, just bricks strewn around and overgrown grass. And it's a building project out in Clayville in Tembisa. It was meant to be a social housing project that built, and which was constituted of 452 units. However, not one of those units has been completed. So far, around 122 million rand has already been poured into the project. A balance of 238 million rand is still needed. The problem is they have got nothing, very little to show for even that initial of Hong Kong, with a 35-7 win over Argentina in the final yesterday. We've been searching for this one, says Salvin Davis, after winning that first leg of the Sevens World Championship. So pictures there of the Blitzbook on the front page of the Citizen. On the front page of the Sowetan, the Sowetan has really stayed very committed to stories around the Madlanga Commission and everything that is sort of flowing from that. So no surprise, Ekurhuleni corruption crackdown, that on the front page of the Sowetan this morning is a picture of the suspended EMPD, acting Deputy Chief Commissioner Julius Mkhwanazi, and his arrest. A city manager expected to join Brigadier Mkhwanazi, ICT official behind bars after a weekend of blitz on municipal officials. So they're detailing the arrests that have taken place over the weekend. Police also confirming that the Metro Police cop and another top official are charged with fraud, defeating the ends of justice. So that court appearance is going to be taking place later this morning, and we'll be keeping a close eye on that. In fact, within the second 7 o'clock hour, we'll take you live to the scene and give you a sense of what we can expect. But yeah, a weekend of a crackdown, especially when it comes to some of the officials in Ekurhuleni. So we'll get the latest on that in the second hour of the show. That's just a broad look at what is on the country's national publications today.
Cathy Mohlahlana is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
Well, let's take a look at your weather for this morning. We have a yellow level 2 warning. Severe thunderstorms leading to localized flooding of susceptible roads, low-lying areas and bridges, as well as localized damage to infrastructure and settlements is expected over Limpopo. Yellow level 2 warning, damaging wind and waves leading to disruption of ports, small harbour activities for a short period of time, and difficulty in navigation at sea. That's expected between Alexander Bay and Algoa Bay this morning. And the third yellow level 2 warning is a storm surge leading to localized damage to coastal infrastructure, including walkways, pipelines, property, localized disruptions to beachfront activities, including closure of beaches for swimming, and localized cause flooding of some coastal areas between Plettenberg Bay and Algoa Bay. There are no fire warnings and no advisories. In Pretoria, it's partly cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, minimum 16, maximum 26. The expected UVB sunburn index is high. In Johannesburg, it's partly cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, minimum 13, maximum 25. In Vereeniging, it's partly cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, minimum 14, maximum 24. In Mbombela, it's partly cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, minimum 17, maximum 29. In Polokwane, partly cloudy with scattered showers and thunder showers, minimum 16, maximum 26. In Mahikeng, partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, minimum 16, maximum 25. In Vryburg, partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, minimum 8, maximum 22. In Bloemfontein, it's fine, minimum 7, maximum 18. In Kimberley, also fine, minimum 7, maximum 18. In Uppington, fine, minimum 8, maximum 18. In Cape Town, cloudy with isolated showers, wind fresh to strong westerly to northwesterly, minimum 12, maximum 16. The expected UVB sunburn index very high. In George, the weather is fine. The wind fresh northwesterly becoming light from evening. Maximum 19 rather, and a minimum there of 9. In Gqeberha, it's fine. The wind fresh to strong westerly. Minimum 13, maximum 21. In East London, it's partly cloudy, becoming cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers in the afternoon. Wind moderate to fresh southwesterly. Minimum 16, maximum 22. In Durban, fine, becoming partly cloudy with isolated evening showers and thunder showers. Wind moderate northwesterly at first, otherwise a moderate to fresh southerly to southeasterly. Minimum 23, maximum 28. The expected UVB sunburn index is moderate. In Richards Bay, partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers. Wind moderate northerly to northwesterly in the morning. Otherwise, moderate to fresh southerly to southeasterly, becoming strong at times. Minimum 24, maximum 29. In Pietermaritzburg, partly cloudy with isolated showers and thunder showers, minimum 16 and maximum 24.
Investing shouldn't feel risky. It should give you security and good returns. Earn up to 7.25% interest per annum with an ABSA Cash Invest Tracker for an investment of 100,000 rands or more. Your capital is guaranteed with immediate access to your fund. That minimum risk, maximum benefit. ABSA Private Bank customer can invest from just R1 via the ABSA Banking app, branch, a private banker, or 0860 111 515. Your story matters. ABSA is an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
At Fly Sapphire, we know that some of the most important lessons take place beyond the classroom, on sports fields, stages, and tours. And so, we've brought back our School Booster Initiative, where 10 schools stand to win 10 domestic return flights each, helping their pupils fly further, dream bigger, and do what they love. Visit flysapphire.co.za. Tell us how these flights could benefit your school, and you could be a winner. Fly Sapphire for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
The Global Briefing on SAFM.
Well, we start the week with rising geopolitical tension that could ripple far beyond the Middle East. Talks involving the United States and Iran are already under strain, with Tehran rejecting what it sees as a confrontational approach. European leaders are also warning that Washington may be escalating rather than stabilizing the situation. And at the same time, voices from the global south, including Brazil, are now calling for a renewed commitment to peace and democratic stability. Well, what does all of this mean? Professor Abel Esterhuizen is Associate Professor in the Department of Strategic Studies at the University of Stellenbosch. Professor Esterhuizen, good morning to you. Thanks for your time. So firstly, these talks between the US and Iran have not quite gone as smoothly as anticipated. Look, I don't think there was expectation that it would be smooth, but certainly it's proving a lot more difficult than perhaps many would have assumed.
Oh, I don't think there's really a drive, a motivation. How should one frame it from either the US or the Iranians at the moment to make peace? Um, I consider the last 2 weeks as an operational pause, and we can talk about what happened in the last 2 weeks. But I think what is important is that we have seen a discomfort in the rest of the world with what unfolded in Iran. And this is coming from the global south in the first place. But it is also coming from Europe, and one shouldn't neglect that the traditional um, partners of the US in NATO is actually showing their discomfort with this war, and I think this is quite important. From China and Russia, I think there's a critical drive to rearm, to support the Iranians, and the operational pause was important for the Iranians. I don't think they have received enough support to actually be strategically effective against the Americans in the war, but the point is they have received, I think, missiles and other intelligence support from the Russians and from the Chinese in the 2 weeks.
When you look at the US, do you believe that the country has been misreading Iran? And what is the threat then around a potential miscalculation, especially because it feels like we've been tinkering on the brink of a trigger that could escalate. We haven't quite gotten there yet, but it does seem that it is inevitable.
Yeah, I think what we have seen and what we have the discussion, the debate in the media and in the academic world also was a clear questioning of the American involvement in Iran. There's no doubt about that, and I think what we have picked up is a view of the American involvement in Iran that are compared to Russian involvement in Ukraine, and what is clearly in breach from a legal perspective, a breach of the use ad bellum principle. So American war, the war in Iran is simply from a legal perspective unacceptable. There's no doubt about that. Let's be frank about that. And the question one has to ask is what direction, in general, from a philosophical perspective, are we seeing in the world, and in what direction are we going in this idea that might is right and that states who has the power and the strength to do whatever they want can do what they want? Is this the breakdown of the rules-based system that everybody is talking about? Because it's simply unacceptable. Let's be frank about it.
Prof, before I let you go, the issue around the high oil prices, there's a warning now that prices could stay higher for longer. That has implications for everybody, including us as South Africans, whether it's the bearing on the cost of goods that we buy, with fuel, food. Your expectation there, very briefly, as we conclude.
Well, South Africa is part of the world, and what is happening in the world is definitely affecting us on all levels. And of course, the higher oil prices are going to affect every one of us. I doubt whether we'll see a decline of the oil prices in the near future if the war continues. The Strait of Hormuz are not going to open. And the problem with the Strait of Hormuz, even if it's opening up, if you're sitting with a war zone, the chances that the international insurance companies will be able to insure the ships going through the Strait of Hormuz are very slim. and so the oil price will remain high. So we will definitely be affected. Also, the agricultural sector that is receiving quite a lot of the what they needed from that part of the world.
Fertilizer, yeah.
The fertilizer, precisely. And so this is going to affect us. It's going to affect our fuel. It's going to affect our food. There's no doubt about it. We will pay the price.
Professor Abel Esterhazy, let me thank you for your time on the Global Brief this morning. Of course, we're also taking your calls 086 000 2032 on the WhatsApp voice note line 0614 104 107.
Good morning, Sis Cathy and SAFM listeners. The revelation of the Mpumalanga former police commissioner need to be taken very serious. One is asking himself, for how long will Bheki Cele be dodging the bullets? We want to see if this one he will dodge. Tuelo in Kimberley.
Good morning, Cathy. The court rulings with regards to RAF is actually quite disturbing, because one thing I can tell you is these rulings do not take in consideration South Africans and the benefits to South Africans. Also, we have to fund everything for everybody, but what are we getting? What are we benefiting as citizens in this country? Anonymous.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, the South African Police Service has raised concern over the leaking and publishing of affidavits of people in ongoing investigations into drug-related criminal networks in the country. Two senior officials in the Kuruleni municipality, including the Metro Police Department's suspended Deputy Chief, Julius Mkwanazi, are expected to appear in the Boksburg Magistrates Court today. They face charges of fraud, corruption and defeating the ends of justice. And Iran has vowed to retaliate after the US seized its cargo ship in the Gulf of Oman. The US military says it fired at the vessel, disabling its engine after it tried to get past an American blockade. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Morning, Joburg's N3 North and there for the N12 eastbound coming out of Alberton. Both routes under pressure. Not only the lane restrictions or traffic restrictions that held nice, but a crash this morning in that area as well. So N12 from Ford Tracker, N3 from Rand Airport. Both routes backed up heavily past Cement Factory and in towards that Bedford area. Mike 1 and M2 coming through Crown Interchange, all jammed up to Braamfontein. That Mike 1 a little bit heavier than it normally is today. And there's problems coming out of Pretoria with some queuing traffic on the M1 South approaching the Brockfontein interchange. Mopani Highway heavy from Theo Mans all the way to Esky and Pathlele. Sefako Makato coming out of Montana, slow onto the M1 through some roadworks and then into some roadworks on the main N1 carriageway towards Stormful Road as well. So a couple of delays due to roadworks to work through there. Durban's Bridle Road, fallen tree between Waterfall and Kloof. So that top end of the Kloof Falls Road, where it's called Bridle Road, could be a problem. Bit of protesting just north of Eshowe on the R66 to watch out for. And Cape Town, after a heavy weekend of rain, the rain continues for much of today. There will be pockets of flooding, pockets of surface water, and just generally busy conditions. Make sure you've got plenty of time to get through. An example of that, the N2 inbound already sitting from Spine Road at Khayelitsha right through to Mowbray Main Road. The N1 worth a mention as well. Traffic from Kraaifontein right through to Century City. It's a busy, slow morning around Cape Town. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
All right. Yeah.
Come on, Zama. Champions.
Okay.
Wow.
The record must show that I did not authorize any of what has happened in the last 15 seconds. But yes, Zaikan, we are the champions. It's a story that's on the front pages of some of our national publications this morning. The Blitzboks, they've made history. And it's a nice one because they won against Argentina, so it makes it even sweeter, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It's a nice one. Oh, it's so nice this morning to wake up to that. It's so massive. It's a big one. Hong Kong has eluded us, and that's the Blitzboks for decades. So to win it like it, yeah, man, what a statement win to wake up to. Yes, it's 35-7. That was the scoreline after we claimed the iconic Hong Kong title. It was a dominant victory over Argentina. And the win marks the Blitzboks' first Hong Kong crown in the modern Sevens era, and it caps a remarkable turnaround for a side that has been growing. Here's the head coach, very emotional, Philip Sneeman.
I think the guys turned it around. On Friday night we had a massive team meeting and a good chat, and I guess all stories had to have some sort of interesting story inside it. So yeah, definitely a fairy tale ending towards this tournament, and incredibly proud of the players, and especially this last game to manage to beat probably one of the most consistent teams over the last couple of years. Argentina, very quality team, and I'm really proud of how the guys stuck out and played tonight.
Right, let's go to more good news. Proteas women's all-rounder Sune Luce has revealed that Kesha Maharaj made an immense contribution to their opening 2 wins of their series against India, which was both at Kingsmead Stadium in Durban. The 36-year-old's premier spin bowling worked, and he was a consultant for the ladies team. Luce says he played a big role in advising about the pitch and conditions that helped them take that 2-0 lead, and believes his involvement was a stroke of genius.
Yeah, it's been awesome to work with him. I think, sometimes a coach can be repetitive and he thinks he knows everything, but coming from a #1 bowler in the world, I think, we just absorbed everything he was saying the last couple of days. It was phenomenal to have him in the camp, just his experience as well, and obviously he's a Durban boy, so he knew the conditions very well. And I think that definitely worked in our favour. So hopefully we can get a Joburg boy in Joburg. I don't know what Manla's plan is, but whoever is there, if they can come into the camp and just, different perspective and a different voice as well. So, no, it was awesome to have him here.
Let's go to Mamelodi Sundowns now. They say this year's CAF Champions League final is about redemption after falling short at the same stage last season. The Brazilians beat Esperance 2-0 on aggregate to set up a 2-legged final against RS Berkane next month. For Tepelo Morena, it's also personal, with the wingback hoping to finally claim the winner's medal that eluded him in 2016. Sundowns shift focus briefly back to the Betway Premiership. Speaking about the Betway Premiership, Orlando Pirates have climbed to the top of the Premiership after a 3-0 win over Amazulu this weekend. The Buccaneers moving 2 points clear of Mamelodi Sundowns, although the Brazilians do have 2 games in hand. Elsewhere, Richards Bay edged TS Galaxy 1-0, while Kaizer Chiefs were held to a goalless draw by Polokwane City, ending their 5-match winning streak. And Magesi were the biggest winners of the weekend, thrashing Durban City 5-2 to climb out of the relegation zone. And finally, elsewhere, Manchester City have blown the Premier League title race wide open after a 2-1 win over Arsenal, cutting the gap at the top to just 3 points with a game in hand. Erling Haaland once again proving decisive, scoring the winner as Pep Guardiola's side piled on the pressure on the leaders heading into the final stretch of the season. Elsewhere, Liverpool left it late in the Merseyside derby, with Virgil van Dijk scoring a dramatic stoppage time winner, while Mohamed Salah equalled Steven Gerrard's record with his 9th goal in that fixture. Across Europe, Bayern Munich secured a record 34th Bundesliga title, while Inter Milan tightened their grip on Serie A. And Real Sociedad lifted the Copa del Rey after a penalty shootout win over Atletico Madrid. That's your sport. We'll be back with more top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The Market Brief with Ndauleng Lechela on SAFM.
Ndauleng, a very good morning to you. A lot of concern coming out of the warnings, particularly on the price of oil. There are mixed signals over these US-Iran peace talks, and all indications are that the oil price is going to stay high for a while.
Good morning, Cathy. You're absolutely right there. And we're starting the week with renewed volatility between the US and Iran after fresh attacks on commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. Brent crude is up 5% this morning to about $95 a barrel as traders price in higher supply risk through one of the world's most important oil routes. Now, that oil move sets the tone for the broader global picture, where geopolitical risks are now feeding directly into policy and market decisions. The tone in oil flipped quickly after a turbulent end to last week. On Friday, the strait was declared open to commercial traffic, which briefly eased worries and sent oil prices lower. But that didn't last long, with reports that access was restricted once more as tensions picked up. With attacks on ships and a ceasefire deadline set for this week, investors are watching closely for any further escalation or signs of talks falling apart. Now, that uncertainty is also shaping policy decisions in Asia. The People's Bank of China is maintaining a cautious stance and keeping benchmark lending rates unchanged for an 11th consecutive month. The central bank is holding back on fresh stimulus as it balances solid economic growth with rising global risks, including elevated oil prices driven by Middle East tensions. Now, growth did surprise to the upside last week, while inflation is starting to firm, reducing the urgency for policy easing. Instead, policymakers appear to be buying time to assess how external shocks filter through the economy. Now, the decision matters globally because China is a key engine of demand, so its policy direction feeds directly into commodity prices, trade activity, as well as sentiment. Now, that same risk-off backdrop is carrying into markets at the start of the week. Asian stocks are under pressure this morning as investors react to both renewed geopolitical concerns and China's decision to step back on rates. That follows a very difficult finish to last week when markets ended in the green after Iran said the strait was open, helping fuel gains locally, with the JSE all share closing up about 2%. But with sentiment shifting yet again, we're likely to see a weaker start both locally and globally. And then lastly, in currencies, the rand remains relatively resilient, supported by elevated precious metal prices, with gold trading above $4,800. The local unit is at 16.37 to the dollar, 22.11 to the pound, and 19.36 to the euro. Now that's your markets and business update for this hour. I'll be back at 7:30 with more.
Africa in Focus with Advocate Sipho Mantula on SAFM.
Advocate Mantula, good morning to you. Firstly, is Trump using Africa as a dumping ground for criminals?
Refreshing morning, Sis Katie, and Jump Africa to the listeners. Indeed, what a very good question that you are raising this morning, Sis Katie. As we saw over the weekend, 15 deportees coming from the U.S., mostly from Latin America, being deported to DRC, Kinshasa. We've seen this script before, Sis Katie. Eswatini, the South Sudan, Uganda, as countries of interest in terms of this program. Others are saying that even if America is bearing the cost, remember what is important. Congo government last month was denying this allegation that there are some deportees who will be sent to DRC and that who will be bearing that cost. And indeed, others are saying it's a temporary aid. But we have seen in Eswatini what has happened when there were deportees who were sent from the U.S. to our neighboring country, Casey. And that's how you see the American project of dumping and at the same time receiving those who are claiming that there is a white genocide in South Africa.
Yeah, I wonder what, the considerations that the countries that have entered into these agreements, what some of the key considerations are. Let's look at Angola. This is where the Pope has arrived. He spent the weekend there.
That is quite true, coming from Cameroon to Luanda, but still touching on the U.S.-Israel Iran conflict state. I think this is very important on this third leg of his four-nation tour in the African continent. He was continuing to spread the message of peace through gospel. And when you look back in Cameroon, Yaoundé, he was urging the young people to remain hopeful and resist temptation of migration that we know that has been troubling West Africa. But in Angola, it's also the issue of tackling the issues that we know. Angola can be rich in oil and minerals, but we know the levels of poverty and the legacy of colonial rule. These are the issues that the Pope is raising. Others are saying he's on appeal for justice and reform across the African continent.
All right, and I see that Kemi Seba, who was arrested in South Africa last week, he's now facing extradition to his home country of Benin.
Cathy, we did touch their story as our leading story on Friday, but today it's very important to know his full name, Steliso Gilles Robert Capochichi. That is his name, also known as Kemi Sebi, that today he's appearing on those extradition processes. It is said, Cathy, when I look at both contexts, to say at the local level, do we have an extradition agreement with Benin? I could not find anything there that we have. Secondly, when you look at the continental level, this was an advisor to the Niger's military leadership, General Chini. And finally, at the international context, in 2024, he lost his French nationality. Remember, he was born in France, but his parents come from Benin. Now, as a Pan-Africanist, he has been, actually, there's an issue of his criminalization with his child, that it's alleged that he was arrested in the mall, not in the border of South Africa and Zimbabwe, and there's ransom money that has been raised. So the crimes that he's facing is conspiracy to commit crime, and also he's facing extradition for inciting rebellion in that attempted coup of 2025. This is a case to watch, because it is important to look at the dynamics of what is happening with the role of France, the role of Benin, and what will South Africa do to can address that issue, because it seems that there is something that is fishy there about this case.
Let's take a look at the 20th of April, 2018.
This case, we might be talking about Freedom Month. We might be talking about 30 years or 31 years of the TRC files and archives. It was important that on this day, the Missing Persons Task Team had to give an announcement on this day to say they have uncovered almost 138 missing persons. When you look at the TRC files, they give us a number of 477. And you'll recall for the past 2 years, there have been many exhumations, burials of people being brought from neighboring countries to South Africa. This is the role of this Missing Persons Task Team. The people who have been leading it, it's not easy, because there you need an anthropology team. And mostly in Africa, we struggle with that skill. It's particularly, you find it in Argentina. That's where we find most of the people who track through the DNA, those who were exiled, those who were killed in exile. And this is a sad story that the Missing Task Team has not yet covered, like I said, almost 477 since 1996 in the final report of the TRC. It's a long journey when you look at this case of the missing persons and the task team that is under the TRC unit at the Justice Department. Asante sana, Cathy, as we're still leading the true conversation, SAFM observing the Freedom Month.
Have you discovered the TV license WhatsApp yet? We see you binging reruns, living for the drama, loving the SABC Plus sports replays. Now, paying your TV license fits the vibe. Simply say hi on WhatsApp to 077 6069 060. Get your balance, make a payment, or set up a debit order all in one chat. No queues, no please hold, just convenience that feels like it should have been here all along. Because every screen in South Africa is a stage and yours is lit. So why wait? Send hi on WhatsApp to 077 6069 060 and get your TV license sorted today. Hashtag your screen, your story.
Postbank is improving your banking experience as part of the April card replacement rollout for social grant beneficiaries using SASSA Gold cards. From the 13th of April until further notice, a Postbank sites inside Checkers, ShopRite, USafe, Pick and Pay, Boxer and Spar will not assist with lost or stolen cards or PIN resets. Postbank apologizes for the inconvenience. You can still access your money through available channels. For help, call 0800 535455. Postbank will never ask for your PIN or OTP. Postbank, an authorized financial services provider.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's a very heavy Monday morning. Back to work. Here's just a couple of highlights. The N12 coming out of Davidton, heavy traffic through Benoni. That's a crash by Tom Jones. Crash on the N3 North at Heldenace, and a collision on the M1 South at Brakfontein interchange. Roadworks on the M1 South coming through Montana. N1 South down towards Stormful, so quite a heavy backlog to work through there. And Cape Town, rain continues this morning after a very heavy rainfall weekend. Everything is busy, a lot heavier than normal. Make sure you're driving safely, but importantly, make sure you've got plenty of time to get through Cape Town traffic. It is heavy. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
SABC2 is bringing the heat. New shows, new faces, and stories that hit home, like the one I'm in called Pimville. And that's where you can catch me, Michelle Masalakai, every Monday to Friday at 9 p.m. Live in every beat, the pulse of SA.
You may or may not know the difference between wheel alignment and wheel balancing, but you do know a great Outsurance deal when you see one. Get a car insurance quote now, and if Outsurance can't save you money, ask for 500 Rand or 1,500 Rand if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get savings or cash, SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
You are listening to the National Briefing with Cathy Mohlahlana.
If you feel like your phone never stops ringing, unsolicited calls, relentless marketing and messages that you just never asked for, you're not alone. For years, South Africans have complained about the lack of control over who can access their personal information. The National Consumer Commission says that's about to change with new regulations and an opt-out registry that's designed to give consumers real power. They're also saying they'll be punishing companies that ignore the rules that have been put in place. Let's get into our interview this morning. Then we're joined by Mr. Hardin Rachisusu, Acting Commissioner, National Consumer Commission. Good morning, sir. Thank you for your time. Firstly, what will actually change for the average consumer that has been complaining for a very, very long time now?
And the SAFM listeners. Indeed, this is a very significant step that the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition has taken by amending the regulations with respect to opt-out. As you have reflected, I think over the years, consumers have been complaining about spam calls, unwanted direct marketing, and it became necessary to strengthen these regulations by establishing an opt-out registry system that will be administered by the National Consumer Commission. This will ensure that we have a central database that consumers will be able to access. They will be able to preemptively block the numbers that keep, calling them for whatever reason and for the reasons that they obviously are not interested, in those kinds of calls.
So what are the penalties that we're talking about here realistically, and how will they be enforced? Because that's been the issue. Consumers choose to opt out, but for whatever reason, it doesn't reduce the calls, it only increases them.
Hence the reason now to strengthen this regulation that let this process be administered by the National Consumer Commission. Let's not leave it out there to the market players. It has proven over the years that those mechanisms are not as effective. Now, with the NCC administering this, by the way, the main sections of the Consumer Protection Act, Section 11, requires that this must be in place. And what will happen now is that if any direct marketer does not comply with the regulations, they would face penalties of up to 10% of their turnover.
Do you have the capacity to monitor and act against offenders at scale?
Yes, we've been working on this. We do have a system that we've been working on. We are, just putting final touches to this system, and so we have communicated that by July we should be able to start registering direct marketers, and then in subsequent months bring on board consumers. Of course, it's a system that requires a lot of investment, and we keep putting in the necessary investment, and we'll keep upgrading and ensuring that this system works. And of course, there could be teething problems like any other system, but the intention is to make it work.
Hardin Rachisusu, the acting commissioner at the National Consumer Commission. So are you confident that these latest steps will finally shift behavior? Or do you think that there'll be weaknesses in enforcement yet again? I can't tell you just how annoying some of these spam calls can be. Well, let's move then straight into this story. Before we get to do that, let's take a quick break.
Cathy Mohlahlana on the National Briefing.
Well, a landmark ruling from the Supreme Court of Appeal has clarified that the Road Accident Fund must compensate all victims, including undocumented foreign nationals. The court's reasoning is clear. The law applies to any person. It comes at a time when the Road Accident Fund is already under severe financial strain. The question is this a victory for justice or a policy decision with serious unintended consequences? The chairperson of SCOPA, Songezo Zibi, has been watching matters at the RAF through the work in Parliament for some time. He joins us on the line. Mr. Zibi, good morning to you. Thank you for your time. What does this ruling mean in practical terms for the RAF's financial sustainability?
So this ruling means that good morning, Cathy. So this ruling means that the Road Accident Fund has to, because the Road Accident Fund spends about 3 to 4% of its total claims go to foreign nationals in general, and then some fraction of that must be to undocumented migrants. So in the bigger scheme of things, it does not hobble financially the Road Accident Fund. The Road Accident Fund has a general funding problem in the sense that its revenue is about 20 to 30% of what it actually needs. So policy needs to be changed, or the legislation needs to be changed wholesale anyway, including resolving this issue.
Could this open the door to abuse, and I should perhaps say further abuse of the system?
Cathy, I don't know. Being involved in an accident or filing a road accident fund usually means somebody has to walk into a police station to get the report, and I think that a lot of undocumented migrants don't want to come anywhere near a police station. So what I think might actually be happening here is that in the majority of cases they don't actually file a claim. Secondly, the road accident fund is actually meant to examine carefully whether the accident took place, where it took place, get hospital records. That's what a claimant is supposed to do. Police records of the accident, a police report, the reports from the hospital, etc. That's what determines whether a road accident took place in South Africa. As long as that is done, you will not get instances where a road accident fund that took place elsewhere is claimed for in South Africa. And that case has not actually arisen, and the judgment says so.
One of the challenges that we sit with, Mr. Zibi, is that we have stories of individuals, whether South African or non-nationals, that are throwing themselves in front of vehicles to cause accidents so that they might be able to claim from the Road Accident Fund. I'm sure these are claims that and allegations that you too might be aware of.
Oh no, we are. My aunt is a nurse, and somebody threw themselves in front of her vehicle and played dead. Fortunately, she could check the vital signs, and the person was actually okay. So, in the Road Accident Fund Act, because it works on a fault basis, one of the things that has to be established is who was at fault. Sometimes it is the pedestrian that was at fault. As long as that can be proven or is established, then that claimant should not get a payout from the Road Accident Fund anyway. So again, if the Road Accident Fund does its work properly in vetting the claims that are filed with it, and the police report is proper, then that risk should be minimized.
Songezo Zibi, let me thank you for your time. He's the chairperson of SCOPA. As you heard there, 3 to 4% of claims put through are put through by foreign nationals. So there should be no serious immediate funding implications for the Road Accident Fund in as far as the ruling is concerned. However, it does not mitigate against the general funding crisis that the RAF has been under over the last couple of years. Okay, you're listening to the National Briefing as we bring you clarity, context and conversation. More coming up on the show. In the second hour, we spotlight what is going to be a big day in court following the arrests of senior officials in the Ekurhuleni municipality. More on that coming up. For now, it's 7 o'clock.
Outsurance is in the business of saving you money on your car insurance premium. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
In our top stories, SAPS warns leaked documents putting lives at risk, and Iran vows to retaliate after US attack on cargo ship. Good morning. The South African Police Service has raised concern over the leaking and publishing of affidavits of people in ongoing investigations into drug-related criminal networks in the country. This follows a newspaper article on the affidavit of Sienki Mukubong, also known as DJ Veti, detailing the circumstances surrounding the death of Opa Sifoka, popularly known as DJ Somebody. Alleged cartel member Katiso Cathy Mohlahlana and 3 others are set to go on trial in October for DJ Somebody's murder. National Police spokesperson Athlinda Mate says leaking people's affidavits put their lives in danger.
It's not only the witnesses' lives at risk, but their families too. These individuals who are witnesses in sensitive and high-profile cases often do so under conditions of trust to the police. Furthermore, the premature release of such information has the potential to compromise ongoing investigations and alert criminals on police ongoing investigations. We would like to emphasize that the protection of witnesses and their families is of critical importance to the work of the police.
2 senior officials in the Ekurhuleni Metro Municipality, including the Metro Police Department's suspended Deputy Chief Julius Mkhwanazi, are expected to appear in the Boksburg Magistrates Court today. They face charges of fraud, corruption and defeating the ends of justice. Mkhwanazi's arrest comes shortly after he spent several days testifying before the Matlanga Commission of Inquiry. That's where his alleged dealings with suspected criminal cartel member Vusimuzi Matlala came under scrutiny. Ngeni reports.
Julius Mkhwanazi first made headlines in the blue light saga. The police watchdog IPID found he was allegedly central to fitting blue lights on vehicles linked to Vusimuzi Matlala, who faces criminal charges. Testimony by the late Marius van der Merwe, also known as Witness D before the Matlanga Commission, added claims of a cover-up tied to a 2022 case when Emmanuel Mbence's body was reportedly dumped in a river. Police insist the arrests are not connected to the IPID probe or evidence before the Commission.
Families of the late whistleblowers Cathy Mohlahlana and Mzansi have welcomed the revelations of suspended Mpumalanga Police Commissioner Cathy Mohlahlana. In a media briefing yesterday, Mohlahlana alleged that top police officials manipulated investigations in cases including those of the two deceased men. Mohlahlana says that this was done to protect the real perpetrators. Mohlahlana's daughter Tsidiso says they will only find closure when the perpetrators are behind bars.
SAPS has been failing us. The SAPS system is failing us day and night. So the only day I will believe this is the day when we will be at court and knowing very well that the people that did what they did to our father 16 years ago, they are being handcuffed and they are going to jail. That's the only day I will say they were telling the truth. But for now, I'm skeptical. I'm actually skeptical about everything because I don't know what to believe anymore.
Meanwhile, Mpatlanyane's widow Pinky says they've lost confidence in the country's justice system.
It is obvious that the politicians are protecting each other because I'm aware that they know the truth, but they never come up and speak on these matters. They never support the families. They never want these deaths or cases to come to light and provide us with justice. So I believe what Mage Manamela is saying, and it is painful that she makes mention of the former minister, and she makes mention of the national commissioner. Hence, I'm saying the gun that killed my husband is from SAPS here in Nelspruit in Mpumalanga.
And finally, Iran has vowed to retaliate after the US seized its cargo ship in the Gulf of Oman. The US military says it fired at the vessel, disabling its engine after it tried to get past an American blockade. An Iranian military spokesperson has described the seizure as an act of armed piracy and a violation of the ceasefire. The BBC's Simi Jolaosu has the details.
President Trump has said the Iran-flagged cargo ship is named the Tuska. He described it as nearly 900 feet long. He said it was intercepted by the USS Esperance, which is a guided missile destroyer. He says the US Navy gave the Iranian crew on board a warning to stop, but claims that they didn't listen. He also says that now the US Marines are on board and exploring what exactly is on the vessel.
Recapping the top story, the South African Police Service has raised concern over the leaking and publishing of affidavits of people in ongoing investigations into drug-related criminal networks in the country. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
You may or may not know the difference between a timing belt and a timing chain, but you do know a great Outsurance deal when you see one. Get a car insurance quote now, and if Outsurance can't save you money, ask for 500 Rand or 1,500 Rand if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get savings or cash, SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Outsurance, licensed insurer and FSP, T's, C's, and information online.
It's a very good morning to you in your SFM Sports headlines. Cricket action, the Proteas women are dominating India. An 8-wicket win in Durban gives them a 2-0 T20 series lead. And in rugby, the Blitzboks have made history, hammering Argentina to finally win the Hong Kong Sevens title. All the details around 7:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Coming out of Pretoria, roadworks on the M1 South before Stormful Road. So you're backlogging out of Montana on Sefaka-Makato towards the highway, and then on the highway down to that Stormful Road junction. A lot of traffic lights out through parts of Hatfield this morning. Pretoria Street badly affected by that. The N1 has a crash going into Brakfontein southbound, so through John Foster it's busy. Then you get to Brakfontein, stays busy all the way down to Allendale Road. It is heavy this morning. Crash at Benoni on the N12 Joburg bound, pushing a queue back towards Davyton. Crash on the N3 at Heldenays, pushing traffic deep back into Alberton and Germiston territories. And the N12 in from Lenasia, Protea Glen, heavy passing Soweto down towards the Golden Highway exit. Protesting north of Eshowe, top end of the KZN province, R66 is affected by that. The N2 off Prospecton up in towards the 20 Hill area, coming in from Amonzam Toti is busy. Then the M2 from the M7 through the roadworks at Westwood Mall, very slow going as well. Also M7 into Pinetown, slow from Hunstedman this morning. And Cape Town, it is still wet after a very heavy rain weekend. Conditions not great, and there's very heavy traffic. All the highways this morning are jam-packed. N2 starts at Khayelitsha right through to Mowbray. The M1 at Kraaifontein through to Kuburg, get a change. The back road out of Durbanville down to Richwood is heavy. There is literally traffic everywhere. Make sure you've got plenty of time to get through and get through safely around the Cape Town Metropole this morning. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
The National Briefing on SAFM. Clarity, context, and conversation. This is where the day begins with Cathy Mohlahlana on the National Briefing.
It's 9 after 7 o'clock. Welcome to the second hour of the National Briefing. I'm Cathy Mohlahlana with you until 9 o'clock as we bring clarity, context and conversation as we move into the second hour of the show today.
Facilitation is saving. Facilitation is saving prison. Commissioners, you are there. I can't agree to leave my kids and go to jail for something that I didn't do. I didn't put blue lights. I must say, I can't.
Nobody.
I may want to be honest and impress you, but not with lies.
Nobody has said anything about jail, Commissioner.
This is a commission of inquiry. You will be making recommendation. I will be sitting somewhere, and I won't see you with that. I will see you after 10 years or 50 years.
A senior Ekurhuleni police official, Julius Mkhwanazi, has been arrested on charges of fraud and corruption following his testimony at the Madanga Commission, where serious allegations of links between police and criminal networks have emerged. This hour will unpack what has led to this moment, what is expected as he appears in court this morning alongside other colleagues within the Ekurhuleni municipality. And does this mark a turning point when it comes to holding those in power accountable? We'll speak to a reporter tracking these developments. The chairperson of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Police also joins us. And then later on in the hour, for our reality check, this week, Professor Thuli Madonsela joins us to reflect on this current moment in South Africa, from accountability to ethics and the state of our democracy. And as always, we want to hear from you. Do you believe enough is being done to clean up policing in South Africa? Or is more drastic action needed? Do you believe enough is being done to clean up policing in South Africa, or is more drastic action needed? We'll take your calls on 086 000 2032 is the number to dial. 086 000 2032 on the WhatsApp voice note line 0614 104 107.
Tension has kicked in as the Proteas women are pumped up to win. However, the women in blue have an agenda to silence the hosts. This is the third T20 International. Do not miss out on the exciting battle, South Africa versus India, on Wednesday, 22 April at 6 p.m. Live on SABC Plus and SABC 3, with reports on SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Don't blow your paycheck on high car insurance premiums when you could be saving with Outsurance. So how much does 35-year-old Zanai save?
A whopping 1,180 Rand.
That's an incredible 1,180 Rand monthly saving on Zanai's 2017 Mercedes-Benz GLA. Get a quote now and see how much Outsurance could save you. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754.
With Outsurance, I'm saving a whole 729 Rand.
729 Rand is a sweet saving on 32-year-old Parushka's 2020 Haval H2. And after 3 claim-free years, you
Yes, I'm ready for that out bonus.
You also get benefits like 24/7 roadside assistance and loads more. Get a quote now and see how much money Outsurance could save you. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Licensed insurer in FSP. TCs and information online. Limits apply.
Cathy Mohlahlana is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SFM Radio.
Well, getting into our big story for today, then going to the heart of law enforcement and credibility. Julius Mkhwanazi, the suspended Ekurhuleni Metro Police Deputy Chief, is going to be making an appearance before the country's courts in Gauteng today. He'll be joined by several other members of the Ekurhuleni municipality, all of them having being alleged to have played a role in fraud and corruption. Whether it's all related to the same case remains to be seen. Let me welcome onto the show Ian Cameron, the chairperson of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Police. Ian, good morning to you. Thank you for your time. This arrest, of course, is just one piece of a much bigger puzzle. The Mandlanga Commission seems to have just, unveiled it all, opened the lid, as it were, on what South Africans have really never seen before.
Yeah, isn't it interesting though that ordinary South Africans, have been saying this is what the truth is, or this is what's happening for almost decades, and yes, it's certainly opened the lid and actually forced the state in some or other capacity to have to act. But yes, indeed, it really has, and obviously we all heard and some saw the press conference or attempt of a press conference that the suspended Provincial Commission in Mpumalanga held yesterday, as well of SAPS. So it just seems like it's a boat filled with holes that everyone's trying to somehow plug.
By and large, this is proving more to be an institutional vulnerability, even institutional failure, when you bear in mind that press conference that you've referenced in Mpumalanga yesterday. And I think the question many South Africans want to know is, how do we clean up our SAPS? How do we ensure that we can reinstill trust and credibility in the institution? What are Parliament's plan? Because the situation has evolved quite significantly from even last month when Parliament did its final work in as far as the inquiry into those allegations raised by the KZN Police Commissioner Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi were concerned.
It's a very, very good question. I'd like to use a very relevant current example. Parliament makes recommendation after recommendation, but in many cases, the executive simply does not take it seriously. This past week, last week actually, we had the handing over of a brand new forensic lab in KwaZulu-Natal from Public Works to the South African Police Service, and it really was a positive event. But when I looked around me, I saw certain key, or rather senior commanders of the South African Police Service who for many, many years have been implicated in massive corruption cases, and still there's no action taken against them. From the SIU investigating them and not only investigating them, but making clear recommendations as to what the criminal proceedings and disciplinary proceedings should be. There was just no action. So it becomes extremely frustrating when Parliament is meant to fulfill an oversight role. We do make recommendations, and I've got many more examples, but unfortunately it seems that there's a political protection for some that doesn't count for others.
Many, of course, will also be interested in knowing then what the immediate recommendation of Parliament is around cleaning up the SAPS, because that's where the big challenge is. And also calling for accountability. And accountability in this instance would need to go beyond the allegations that Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi made and beyond the work that the inquiry conducted, because seemingly the problem reaches far beyond even the terms of reference that Parliament looked into, and even that the Madlanga inquiry is tasked with now.
That's a very important comment. Let's talk about the immediate steps. We can start with integrity management, something that we've been asking for the past 2 years as the Police Portfolio Committee. We said that there needs to be urgent integrity tests and lifestyle audits for the top 20 in the South African Police Service. That has mostly not happened. We also said, if need be, there should be quite a few, definitely more than one polygraph processes for senior commanders in SAPS to constantly probe whether certain individuals are involved in wrongdoing or not, obviously by independent organizations. And there should be a far larger role for the Auditor General of South Africa to play on the findings that they have made, because the findings on irregular expenditure and fruitless and wasteful expenditure that they keep on making just simply are not fixed, or generally they are ignored. I can give you a good example where we are at the moment with a bit of a catch-22 with the Private Security Regulatory Authority, where both the CFO and the CEO are implicated in massive corruption of many, many years ago. But yet 3 police ministers later, there's still no action taken against him. And now we're sitting in a position where we have to somehow start a annual performance process in Parliament with that said department. But how do I welcome someone that I know is involved in wrongdoing to come and account to my committee when recommendations by the executive aren't followed? So I think integrity management can be done immediately. It can be done quite independently, and there's no reason for it to be taking so long.
So, Ian, very specifically, directly, who is letting the people of South Africa down when it comes to this accountability? Because if I'm hearing you clearly, you're saying you as Parliament are doing what you need to do. You are ignored. By who?
Well, I can start in the latest example. It's definitely by the broader defense ministry or security ministries, the police minister or his office, and also then in parts of the presidency. Let me use Phala Phala as an example, where someone like General Wally Rode is still comfortably in his position, no matter regarding Phala Phala specifically, but many, many other transgressions previously. The presidency simply doesn't take it seriously. It's a small police force on its own that seemingly can act with impunity and have no consequence whatsoever. And it's the same within parts of the police ministry, unfortunately.
Ian Cameron, the chairperson of Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Police. So as those dominoes then fall in Ekurhuleni, Sibahle Mota is our SABC senior journalist on that story. Sibahle, Julius Mkhwanazi long expressed being concerned about going to jail, said it was not a place he was intending on being. I guess today or over this past weekend, the chickens have come home to roost.
Good morning to you, Cathy, and to the listeners. I mean, the evidence that has been presented before the Madlanga Commission against Julius Mkhwanazi is quite overwhelming, and I think those who have followed the Madlanga Commission quite closely, believed that the chickens would definitely come home to roost. And if you remember, the allegations that have been made against him are the Blue Light saga that involves, Vusumuzi Matlala. But at the core of these allegations are also, claims that he was running a parallel sort of security structure within the city of Ekurhuleni that involved Vusumuzi Matlala. And there's been other allegations that have also been made against him and this unit, which included, the robbery of goods from various trucks. There was also the death of Emmanuel Mbenze when they claimed that, they were recovering these vehicle goods. So I think a lot of people who commit crime don't necessarily want to go to jail, but unfortunately, the Mahlanga Commission as well as the police have been, presented with a very, very damning evidence against Julius Mkhwanazi, and he has to, unfortunately, answer for his part in all of this.
Spaklemota, we'll leave it there.
Fly Sapphire, we know that some of the most important lessons take place beyond the classroom, on sports fields, stages and tours. And so, we've brought back our School Booster Initiative, where 10 schools stand to win 10 domestic return flights each, helping their pupils fly further, dream bigger and do what they love. Visit flysapphire.co.za. Tell us how these flights could benefit your school and you could be a winner. Fly Sapphire, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
Attention all shoppers.
Our supermarket shelves are full of unhealthy food. It's often hard for me to know which foods are good for my family. The information on packaged food is complicated and hard to understand. I wish we had easy-to-understand warning labels on foods high in salt, sugar, and saturated fat. We have the right to know what's in our food. Support front-of-package warning labels on unhealthy packaged foods. Sign the petition on healer.org. That's HEALA.org.
Top billing is back and it's more spectacular than ever. Join us as we reopen the doors to South Africa's most iconic lifestyle show, from breathtaking homes and world-class travel to the people shaping culture and success. This is where it all comes together. Mark your calendar. The all-new season of Top Billing premieres on season 3, or on S3 rather, Thursday, the 30th of April at 7 p.m. You can also stream it live on SABC Plus, available on all app stores. Top Billing is back on S3. Open up.
Call SAFM now on 086 000 2032.
All right, you're listening to the national briefing as we bring you context, clarity and conversation. Picking up on some of the stories we've run this morning. Let me start off in Germiston. Thabo, good morning to you.
Hi, good morning, Cathy. How are you?
Good, sir. Go for it.
Good, man. Yeah. Cathy, I've got a problem with this legislation, this RAF legislation that has been passed, that apparently would give foreign nationals, including illegal ones, the right to can claim RAF in South Africa. I'm very disappointed, and I'm wondering what kind of lawmakers do we have, in our parliament? Because first of all, have they mitigated the risks? What informed this legislation? Have they looked at all other, the controls? To say how are they going to? Because as a matter of fact, Cathy, me and you and the listeners know that in South Africa, as we sitting, we've got foreign nationals who claim to be illegal. There's a whole lot of them. Yet they're using fraudulent, documents. So what is going to happen? Are those foreign nationals going to be eligible to claim for RAF? It's worse with those that are undocumented. Because here we're talking about the taxpayers' money. It's our tax, Cathy. It's my tax, me and you and the listeners. So this abuse of our tax by government because of them not having, conducted due diligence. It must really come to an end.
Thabo, the Scopa chairperson, who was part of that inquiry into RAF, and so he studied the books of that particular institution, and I think he's very well versed on the matters.
Yes.
He says only 3 to 4% of the total claims to the Road Accident Fund are from foreign nationals. So I'm trying to say, I hear your concern, but within the context of just how few claims they make up?
That's not. I can tell you where's the evidence, because it's too good to be believable. He said that, but I don't believe it, and surely I'm sure other South Africans don't believe those kind of stats.
Okay.
Because Yes, because also I can give you another example, Kathy, if you allow me.
No,
we know there's a
Thabo,
you asked.
Thabo,
Sorry,
we're
Kathy.
going to have to leave it there. We're completely out of time. But I think you've made your point. You don't believe what the stats are saying.
Cathy Mohlahlana on the National Briefing.
Well, still staying then with our big story for the morning, taking a look at that arrest of Julius Mkhwanazi, the suspended Deputy Commissioner of Ekurhuleni Metro Police, and the fallout really within the broader within the broader South African Police Service. We're joined by Andy Mashile. Andy Mashile is a security strategist. Andy, good morning to you. Thanks for your time. It's hard to keep up really with all of the developments around the SAPS and the implicated individuals. How are you making sense of it all?
Kathy, good morning to you, my wonderful sister, and Mashaile, not Mashile. This really shows us, Kathy, that for the many years that we have thought that the police would be our bulwark, our last number, or our last line of defense, we were really hoodwinked by that belief and not really going deeper into how they operate, who they assist, why some cases cannot be resolved, why some dockets go missing, and why some police officers would be rude and arrogant in terms of engaging with the victims of crime, as you and I would know of the victims of crime survey, and listening to the brutality and the fear and the pain that comes with what the police have done. Now, the Manamela files, when you compare them to the July 6th, 2025 presser by General Ntantam Kwanas, you begin now to see a pattern, Kathy. And I can tell you, this is not the only province that's going to be put under the spotlight by the insiders. Insiders meaning those who know how others have been operating criminally inside the policing or criminal justice system.
Andy, very briefly, there is a credibility issue here because with a highly factionalized SAPS, what is also apparent is that it seems to be a game of tit for tat that is also at play here.
Mwaname, you are quite correct. This is the situation. Police officers who commit crime are expert criminals because in the commission of their crime, they know how to close down the weaknesses in their own criminal operating system. And they would hold those who commit smaller nyana crimes, would hold focus on those who commit bigger crimes, and they would watch each other out, or position each other out in terms of the evidence that I have against you. If you don't promote me, I know you have done A, B, C, D, F, G with Kathy and Andy, and therefore, and the one who's committed a bigger crime and wants to ascend the structures would then pay out money or would also hold a grudge. When that particular individual becomes a general from that level of being a brigadier, they would now go out and establish a team that would hunt down Kathy. The Jan Mabula team in Northwest that came to investigate other investigators and other investigators from IPIT going into Pahlane's house and many of those things. These are typical, simple examples that you and I can say there is more that needs to be done. And I have put it very clear.
Okay.
Lotto fund justice. I will go and buy Kathy. The ticket is a 40 rand, 10 rand per week. It will be 40 rands. When I'm joined, or when we are joined by 20 million South Africans, it converts into 800 million rands. 20 million multiplied by 40 rands per month, it will give you 800 million, and Mazanga should run for the next 5 years. And when he runs for the next 5 years, that 800 million multiplied by 60 months, it will give you 4 billion rand. So we don't have a problem, Yafandi.
Okay. Andy, I believe you've made the point. Let's leave it there. Andy is a security strategist. So a call then for the continuation of the Madlanga Commission. There's something about the way in which it's doing its work that is literally able to hit the nail on the head in as far as where this corruption has long remained hidden. It's time for your latest headlines.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, suspended police organised crime unit member Fanning Nkosi's bail application is expected to resume in the Pretoria North Magistrates Court this morning. The SAPS Madlanga Commission task team arrested him following a raid at his home in Pretoria North earlier this month. The South African Police Service has raised concern over the leaking and publishing of affidavits of people in ongoing investigations into drug-related criminal networks in the country. And a man in the U.S. state of Louisiana has shot dead 8 children, including 7 of his own. Police say the attacks took place in 3 homes. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SFM traffic with momentum. Just as you plan your route, only 15% of households plan for retirement. Plan yours today. Speak to a Momentum accredited financial advisor for advice that meets your context.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. The M1 South through Pretoria stays heavy. Roadworks moving from Montana closer to Storumful Road. The M1 South heavily backed up there. Lights are out at Gazina on Johan Haynes, and also as you come into the city centre on Paul Kruger down through Capital Park. So both of those routes from the north are under pressure. Crash leaving Soweto on the M1 up by Gordon Road. An earlier crash at Heldenace on the N3. Still backing traffic out of Alberton and Germiston this morning. And a collision on the N12 around Tom Jones Street on your way to Joburg, causing a big backlog coming through from the Davyton Pitfontein side this morning. Crossing to Durban, M7 looking fairly heavy, getting into Pinetown. Queues on that section from the N3 highway, getting up over St John's Avenue. A lot of traffic between Munzum, Toti and Prospect in the N220 Hill area, very slow. Durban's M4 Southern Freeway into the city centre is bad. There's also some traffic coming down the N2 from Komashu Highway towards Umgeni Road very slowly, and that's being held by a crash just by Inunda Road. And the M13 Hillcrest through to Kloof looking busy. Cape Town, easier to say, just give yourself plenty of time to get through. It is fully loaded across the Cape Town metropole area this morning. Everything badly backed up on account of the fact that still wet weather conditions, plus the hangover of that bad weather on the weekend. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Momentum is part of Momentum Group Limited, an authorised FSP and registered credit provider.
Some say the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Well, sometimes it gets the grease, sometimes it gets replaced. Generic guidance only fits a few situations. That's why Momentum accredited financial advisors take the time to understand you and only then apply their expertise. Advice meets your context. Momentum, your journey to success. Momentum is part of Momentum Group Limited, an authorized financial services and registered credit provider.
SAFM 104 to 107 nationwide. This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, it's such a good showing from our national teams. So the Proteas women, they're in control against India right now.
Yeah, Cathy, India is still looking for answers this morning after that hiding yesterday. So Proteas women making Durban feel like home ground advantage there. They take a 2-0 lead after back-to-back wins in Durban, the Proteas women. And this is after their T20 series against India. All-rounder Sunil Lewis has revealed that spin bowler Keshav Maharaj played a key role behind the scenes, and South Africa women's team now head to Johannesburg for Wednesday's third clash, where a win could seal the series with 2 games to spare.
And then as for Wednesday, we know there's a bit of rain around in Johannesburg, so anything can happen. I think it's could possibly be a shortened game, and that brings excitement as well. So no, I think, if it was a 3-match series, it would have been lacquer, but big game on Wednesday to secure the series for us. We'll be looking at that, but at the end of the day, it's another game to prepare for the World Cup, and we're taking it like that.
Rugby Sevens action, the Blitzboks have written their name into history, ending a 50-year wait to win the iconic Hong Kong Sevens title with a dominant 35-7 victory over Argentina. And Orlando Pirates head coach Abdusalam Wadu says their emphatic 3-0 win over Amazulu is the perfect build-up to next weekend's Soweto derby, where far more than just 3 points are at stake. The Buccaneers now sit top of the Betway Premiership on 58 points after 25 matches, to clear of Mamelodi Sundowns, who do have games in hand. Let's hear from Abdusalam Wadu.
I'm very happy for the boys, but again, I think if we want to be honest, it's a game that could have finished with the 7-0, definitely. So yeah, let's keep going. I think it was a good afternoon for us. Just before the derby, it gives you a lot of confidence for the guys. We still, I told them before the game that we have 6 games, 18 points on the table, 6 finals. So it's where we are going to, and we are going to fight until the end.
Elsewhere, Manchester City have blown the Premier League title race wide open after a 2-1 win over Arsenal, cutting the gap at the top to just 3 points with a game in hand. Here's Pep Guardiola.
I think the best 2 teams in England. I think it was a good advert for the worldwide and for England. Both proactive, go there, mama ahead, attack quick. We do the same, a little bit more process. So nothing to say. I will be satisfied with the draw, with the defeat. So I'm an age that when I see my team, what can I say? Cannot complain at all.
That's your sport on the National Briefing. We'll be back top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The Market Brief with Ndawleng Lechela on SAFM.
Good morning, Ndawleng. South African vehicle recalls more than double in the 2025-2026 financial years. It's amid rising safety concern. What's driving this?
So what we are seeing, Cathy, is the local auto sector really under intense scrutiny as safety concerns escalate. According to News 24, the National Consumer Commission is nearing the end of an investigation after vehicle recalls surged to 75 in the 2025-26 period, as you mentioned there, more than double the previous year. Now, the rise has affected thousands of cars across multiple brands, raising fresh concerns about quality control and regulatory oversight. Now, the Commission is assessing whether negligence or poor communication by manufacturers contributed to the spike, particularly in cases involving fire risks and faulty airbags. Meanwhile, the Automobile Association warns that local safety standards still lag global benchmarks, with fewer mandatory safety features required in vehicles. The outcome of this probe could force stricter regulation and potentially reshape industry practices across the sector. Now, turning to the economic picture, analysts say South Africa's upcoming data releases are likely going to point to a stable but fragile consumer environment. Inflation figures out on Wednesday are expected to hover near 3% for March, reflecting relatively muted price pressures and steady demand conditions. However, economists caution that this calm may prove temporary, as rising global oil prices combined with a softer rand are expected to push fuel costs higher from April, with knock-on effects for household budgets given fuel's heavy weighting in the consumer price index basket. Retail sales data, also out on Wednesday, will be closely watched for confirmation of whether consumers are still managing to hold up, with expectations of only modest growth. Together with signals from the SOBs and business confidence indicators, this week's releases will help shape the outlook for spending as inflation pressures begin to rebuild. Then in markets, local traders await those key domestic prints, with the JSE likely to be influenced by global sentiment today, pointing to a softer start. Over in the US, futures are also in negative territory, reflecting renewed US-Iran tensions as the ceasefire deadline approaches, with expiry set for the 22nd of April. The uncertainty is weighing on sentiment while pushing oil prices higher, up around 5% this morning to roughly $95 a barrel. Now, that spike has not fully filtered through to the rand, which remains relatively stable at 16.39 to the dollar this hour, 22.12 to the pound, and 19.27 to the euro. That's where I leave things with you. Be back bright and early tomorrow with another market update. I'm Ntauling Lechela for the National Briefing.
At Fly Sapphire, we know that some of the most important lessons take place beyond the classroom, on sports fields, stages, and tours. And so, we've brought back our School Booster Initiative, where 10 schools stand to win 10 domestic return flights each, helping their pupils fly further, dream bigger, and do what they love. Visit flysapphire.co.za. Tell us how these flights could benefit your school, and you could be a winner. Fly Sapphire for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
Clientele is here to safeguard you and your family with compassion because life happens. Be part of a family that truly cares. Our funeral dignity plans have helped South Africans bury their loved ones with dignity for more than 30 years. Let us help you create a meaningful tribute that honors your life and those of your loved ones. We pay out within 24 hours and you will get double accident cover with a clientele funeral plan. Our plans are affordable. Pick the option that suits your needs. Easy to apply, no medical examinations and no paperwork. SMS SAFM to 48031. That's 48031. Clientele Life is an authorized FSP and licensed life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
Top billing is back and it's more spectacular than ever. Join us as we reopen the doors to South Africa's most iconic lifestyle show. From breathtaking homes and world-class travel to people shaping culture and success, this is where it all comes together. Mark your calendar, the all-new season of Top Billing premieres on S3 Thursday, the 30th of April at 7 p.m. You can also stream it live on SABC Plus, available on all app stores. Top Billing is back on S3. Open up.
Cathy Mohlahlana is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
.45, you're listening to the National Briefing and we're getting into our reality check. Can you believe it? Week 3. So this means that it's the third week of our reality check installment. At the core of the segment is to give us a moment to pause, reflect, and think seriously about the state of South Africa. Not just what is happening, but why it's happening, what it's costing us, and what must be done to change it. It's a segment really to provoke our thinking and enrich our discourse. This morning, we're joined by our guest who has played a pivotal role in South Africa. Firstly, as the former public protector. Today, she teaches constitutional law, social justice, and constitutional governance. This is the director of the Center for Social Justice in the Faculty of Law at Stellenbosch University, Professor Thuli Madonsela. Professor Madonsela, good morning to you. Thank you for agreeing to be part of the journey on the reality check with us for this week. And this morning, morning, you want to start off by drawing our attention to this idea of unity in diversity as dictated by our constitution rather, and the National Coat of Arms.
Absolutely. Good morning, Cathy. Thank you for the privilege of being on your show, and congratulations on this prime sport. Yes, I thought we should start with what the Constitution says we have committed ourselves to become. And key among those commitments is unity in diversity. It is right there in the preamble. Can I quickly just read that?
Yes, you may go ahead.
In our preamble, we talk about we, the people of South Africa, recognize the injustices of our past, honor those who suffered for justice and freedom in our land, respect those who have worked to build and develop our country, and believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. And then it speaks then about we have elected our representatives and we adopt this constitution as the supreme law of the land. I also want us to pay attention to three things then that we are aiming for. One is healing the divisions of the past and establish a society based on democratic values, social justice, and fundamental human rights. And we also talk about laying the foundation for a democratic society where it's based on the will of the people and everyone is protected by law. We talk about improving the quality of life of every person and freeing the potential of each person. So clearly, we voluntarily signed up to become a united society, understanding that we are diverse as a society, but that diversity is what brings us together rather than divides us. And we also included that in our coat of arms. So that unity in diversity is in Khoisan language, but it is unity in diversity. Yes.
And what does all of this then mean for us today, Prof? Why this reminder that you've given us?
I thought I should bring in the reminder so that we can then reflect on how far have we gone in achieving that unity in diversity. 5 years after the Constitution was adopted, we had somebody, Ian Curran, who is a professor at Wits University, singing praises of our Constitution. So I'm just going to read a small portion of what he said. He says, at the beginning of the 21st century, the 1996 South African Constitution is a beacon of hope in a world plagued by conflict, poverty, and the failure of governments. Close quotes. Now, Nelson Mandela himself weighed in and he said, we enter into a covenant that we shall build a society in which all South Africans, both black and white, will be able to walk tall without any fear in their hearts, assured of their inalienable right to human dignity, a rainbow nation at peace with itself and the world. But what does it take to be at peace with each other? John Rawls made it clear, without a fair society, you can't be at peace. So what does that mean? It means the burden of living together should be shared equitably, and the benefits of living together should be shared equitably. And I want us as South Africans then to reflect, are we united in our diversity today? And if we're not united in our diversity, what's the problem? Yes, of course, we get united when the Springboks are playing, but do we get united when Bafana Bafana is playing? We get united when the president of the United States of America attacks us. but are we united every day in all our little spaces?
Part of the broader issue that it sounds like you're also leading us to, Prof, is to interrogate the source of that division, that it may not be as simplistic as we often say and make it about race, but that as long as we have the high levels of inequality in our society, can we then truly talk about unity?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Cathy. Can you feel united when you are grieving the inequality of opportunities? We know under apartheid that it was a rigged economy, and it started long before apartheid was declared. As early as 1896, before we became the Union of South Africa, they passed the Glen Grey Act for no good reason other than to smoke people out of agriculture so that there would be no competition to white farmers, and two, for the white farmers and the mines to get unfree labor. The words of Professor Sampieter Blanche, not mine. And also Charles van Onselen, who both have written books to talk about our painful and ugly history. So the laws that constrained commerce and life for Africans, colors, and Indians, but mostly for Africans, are gone. But can we say the molding of society that was done by those laws is gone? Nelson Mandela, at the start of democracy, said, no, that molding is not gone. The Constitutional Court, in many cases, S versus Makwanyane, Minister of Finance versus Van Heerden, said that molding is not gone. Even more recently, Mogoeng spoke in AfriForum, in the AfriForum versus City of Tshwane, that no, that molding is not gone. But Cathy, the question is, how does that molding show itself? One example is we say there's unemployment in our country. But whilst unemployment among Africans is at about 37.6%, among white people, it's around 7%. So I don't want anybody to be unemployed. All I'm just showing here is what was created in the past, the structural inequality created in the past, remains with us. In the next few days, we'll talk about wealth inequality, land inequality, but also we'll talk about parity of social esteem. Now, under apartheid, there was a deliberate campaign to condemn Blackness and to stigmatize Blackness. So that created neural pathways in people's heads that condemn Blackness, that stigmatize Blackness. The question I'd like to ask us is, in the 30 years of democracy, have we done enough to detoxify ourselves from that paradigm that elevates whiteness and stigmatizes Blackness, elevates maleness and stigmatizes being female? And you can go with disability, you can go with age and things like that. To what extent are we consciously, beyond the law, creating this society where there's unity in diversity? Because unity in diversity, as the Constitutional Court said in S versus Makwanyane, means mutual respect, equal valuing of all lives.
Professor Thuli Madonsela, you've set the foundation, looks like we're in for quite a week, the director of the Center for Social Justice in the Faculty of Law at Stellenbosch. What does it take to be at peace with each other? Unity in diversity. What does that practically mean? That's what you can expect on the reality check for the week. And of course, I'll be taking your calls 086 000 2032 is the number to dial. On the WhatsApp voice note line 0614 104 107.
Tension has kicked in as the Proteas women are pumped up to win. However, the women in blue have an agenda to silence the hosts. This is the third T20 International. Do not miss out on the exciting battle, South Africa versus India, on Wednesday, 22 April at 6 p.m. Live on SABC Plus and SABC3, with reports on SABC radio stations. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Cathy Mohlahlana is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
I think that I should indicate the 3 points in advance. So maybe she can then indicate.
They may as well line of thinking to cause the police with whom they would be fighting are eligible for injury on duty. It's just completely insane. Thank you. Morning, Cathy. It's Vugani from Durban. The Supreme Court's ruling that illegal immigrants are eligible for RAF is very disturbing. They may as well extend this line of thinking to catch and transit robbers to be eligible for injury on duty, because the police with whom they would be fighting are eligible for injury on duty. It's just completely insane. Thank you.
Morning, Sis Cathy, and to the other listeners. Yeah, this thing of the US, Donald Trump dumping among criminals, I think there's more to it. That's just me. I think they are not criminals. It has to do with some sort of terrorism or some operations that they are up to. Give it about 5-10 years, something is going to show up.
All right, those are just some of the voice notes that you're sending through to the show this hour. Well, coming up in the final hour of the show after 8 o'clock, we'll be getting into our debate for today, and we'll be turning the attention to energy supply, right, and the move for renewable energy. That will be at the center of our debate, the national briefing debate after 8. For now, it's 8 o'clock.
Outsurance Essential is made for older cars. Claims are paid in cash within 5 working days, and you choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43185. That's CAR to 43185.
In our top stories, suspended Sergeant Nkosi to apply for bail, and SAPS warns leaked documents putting lives at risk. Good morning. Suspended police organised crime unit member Fanny Nkosi's bail application is expected to resume in the Pretoria North Magistrates Court this morning. The SAPS Matlanga Commission task team arrested him following a raid at his home in Pretoria North earlier this month. Nkosi is facing charges of theft, defeating the ends of justice, as well as unlawful possession of ammunition and explosives. He testified before the Commission for 8 days about his alleged links to suspected criminal cartel members Vuzimuzi Katmatlala and Katiso KT Mulife. Sasha Naidu reports.
After spending more than 2 weeks behind bars, Nkosi, whose name featured prominently at the Madlanga Commission, will return to the dock this morning for the continuation of his bail application. Last week, through an affidavit submitted to the court, Nkosi said that he should be granted bail and that he intends to plead not guilty as the charges against him have been fabricated. However, the state has opposed his bail application, saying that the evidence against him clearly shows that he is involved in protecting criminals involved in serious and violent crimes.
Meanwhile, suspended Tshwane Chief Financial Officer Gareth Mzansi will this morning return to testify before the Commission in Pretoria. He's accused of tender manipulation in the procurement of security services for the city of Tshwane. Mzansi has denied financially benefiting from security companies doing business with the city. Siwahle Mota reports.
3 security companies contracted by the city of Tshwane are under scrutiny at the Mohlahlana Commission. They include Gubi's 85 Solutions, Triotic Protection Services, and Ngapesheya Security. Mzansi has distanced himself from all 3, stating that he has never personally benefited from any of them. Gubi's 85 Solutions, owned by Kelvin Mahlangu, received the lion's share of the multi-million rand security tender. Triotic Protection Services has been linked to ANC Tshwane chairperson and former regional secretary Eugene Modise. Ngapesheya Security is owned by Bheki Nkosi, who is linked to Sergeant Fanny Nkosi.
In another development, the South African Police Service has raised concern over the leaking and publishing of affidavits of people in ongoing investigations into drug-related criminal networks in the country. This follows a newspaper article on the affidavit of Sienki Mukubong, also known as DJ Veti, detailing the circumstances surrounding the death of Opa Sifoka, popularly known as DJ Somebody. Alleged cartel member Cathy Mohlahlana and 3 others are set to go on trial in October for DJ Somebody's murder. National Police spokesperson Ethelenda Mate says leaking people's affidavits put their lives in danger.
It's not only the witnesses' lives at risk, but their families too. These individuals who are witnesses in sensitive and high-profile cases often do so under conditions of trust to the police. Furthermore, the premature release of such information has the potential to compromise ongoing investigations and alert criminals on police ongoing investigations. We would like to emphasize that the protection of witnesses and their families is of critical importance to the work of the police.
A baby believed to be less than a month old has been killed in a collision between 2 vehicles on the M35 in Folweni, south of Durban. The drivers of both vehicles were critically injured and taken to hospital following the crash, which happened last night. Gareth Jamieson is a paramedic from a private company.
Whilst paramedics worked to stabilise the 2 drivers, a male and a female, firefighters used the jaws of life and other hydraulic equipment to cut them free. Once freed from the wreckage, the 2 were carefully extricated before being loaded into awaiting ambulances. Unfortunately, paramedics found a baby believed to be less than a month old had also been involved in the collision and unfortunately suffered major fatal injuries and unfortunately was declared deceased on the scene by paramedics.
And finally, a man in the U.S. state of Louisiana has shot dead 8 children, including 7 of his own. Police say the attacks took place in 3 homes in the city of Shreveport. The youngest child was 1 year old. Police killed the gunman as he tried to flee in a stolen vehicle. Tabitha Taylor is a member of the city's council.
I pain and I grieve for this family. I grieve for the lives that are lost. There are 8 children that are deceased. I can't be strong for you. I think about the mother and what this family has lost. I think about this community and what this community has lost. And I don't have the words to give you, and I'm sorry.
Recapping the top stories, suspended police organised crime unit member Fanny Nkosi's bail application is expected to resume in the Pretoria North Magistrates Court this morning. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Theft, accident and 1 million rand third-party cover for your older car. Outsurance Essential has it all. Get a quote. SMS CAR to 43185. That's CAR to 43185.
Driving an older car, this is for you. For her 2015 Chevrolet Aveo, 49-year-old Esmeralda chose Outsurance Essential Car Insurance because she gets covered for full retail value if her car is stolen or hijacked. For these and many more benefits, Esmeralda pays only 449 Rand a month. Get Outsurance Essential Car Insurance today for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 Rand. SMS CAR to 43185. That's CAR to 43185. Outsurance, licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
Very good morning to you in your SFM Sports Headlines. Soccer. Orlando Pirates have climbed to the top of the Betway Premiership, building momentum ahead of that massive Soweto derby clash with Kaizer Chiefs. And in golf, Spain's John Rahm has cruised to a 6-shot victory at the Live Golf event in Mexico City. All the details around 8:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Heavy backlogs coming from the south side of Joburg this morning, travelling north, the N1 up from Soweto, a crash before Gordon Road causing delays. The N3 from Elands through to Bedford View stays heavy, and the Mike 1 and M2 routes through the crowd up to Empire is very slow. Once you get out of that, the Mike 1 from Parktown all the way through to Grayston Drive to get into Sandton remains pretty heavily backed up as well. Problems on the N14, the Krugersdorp Highway on your way to Pretoria, just after the R55 Pretoria West exit, and the big three routes coming south into Pretoria, Eskie and Pathweli, Paul Kruger and Johan Haynes through Gazina. All of those routes, heavy disruption as we go back to work Monday with some very slow traffic in from the north towards Pretoria Central. Durban, the N3 queuing from Pinetown down towards the Pavilion Mall. The N2 north from the M7 up through to Westwood Mall, that's heavy. And the M4 Southern Freeway is under some pressure this morning through Congella and Umbilo. Chris Hardy inbound a crash at Connaught Bridge causing some delays as well. Cape Town, best summed up by everything being really busy on account of the wet weather and the disaster that was the heavy rains on the weekend. Still big impact on that this morning. A lot of traffic around the southern suburbs. Big traffic on the M3, Constantia through to Hospital Bend. Very heavy around Khayelitsha, Mfuleni and Manenberg, Danafontein. Also just lots of traffic around the Elsies River, Goodwood areas, and a crash on Plattercliff Road at the N7, holding traffic coming from Plattercliff towards Tableview. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
The National Briefing on SAFM. Clarity, context and conversation. This is where the day begins with Cathy Mohlahlana on the National Briefing.
Nine after 8 o'clock, you're listening to the National Briefing as we bring you clarity, context and conversation with you until 9 a.m. This is the final hour of the show this morning. Coming up, we'll be getting into our briefing debate. This morning, we take a look at energy and, of course, the pressure that there is to transition to renewables. We'll ask what is the right thing for South Africa to do in this moment. Later on in the show, we'll also take a look at our Built in Mzansi feature. That's, of course, bringing you some of South Africa's innovators, solution providers, those that are building this economy quietly so in the background. As always, we'd love to hear from you. I see Professor Tulima Donsela's contribution on the reality check already sparking conversation. We will make time for those calls on 086 000 2032. That's the number to dial, 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, 0614 104 107.
At Fly Sapphire, we know that some of the most important lessons take place beyond the classroom, on sports fields, stages and tours. And so, we've brought back our School Booster Initiative, where 10 schools stand to win 10 domestic return flights each, helping their pupils fly further, dream bigger and do what they love. Visit flysapphire.co.za. Tell us how these flights could benefit your school and you could be a winner. Fly Sapphire, for the love of flying. T's and C's apply.
Here's something exciting for anyone who wants to build skills for the future. SABC Plus has partnered with Microsoft to launch a free AI fluency and digital skills learning hub. It's designed to help South Africans understand artificial intelligence and develop practical digital skills for the modern economy. You can learn anytime, anywhere. Learn AI and digital skills for free on SABC Plus, powered by Microsoft. Download the SABC Plus app today.
You are listening to the National Briefing with Cathy Mohlahlana.
Well, let's get into our briefing debate then this morning. South Africa standing at a critical moment in as far as defining its energy future, with around 74% of electricity still coming from coal. The pressure to transition to renewable energy is intensifying. But this is not just an environmental debate. It's about jobs, economic survival, and the pace at which things can realistically happen. Joining us for this conversation, Dr. Nandi Mulambazo, who's a senior lecturer at Wits University. Dr. Mulambazo, good morning to you. Thank you for your time this morning.
Good morning, Cathy, and thank you for having me this morning.
All right, I'm going to ask you just to try and speak a little bit louder because that connection to you isn't great. Let me also then welcome onto the show Chilizi Matava, who is the Highveld Regional Secretary at the National Union of Mine Workers. Chilizi, good morning to you.
Good morning, Cathy, and listeners. Thank you.
We're also scheduled to be joined by Cynthia Moyo, who is the climate and energy campaigner at Greenpeace Africa. We will put her on as soon as she comes online. So, Dr. Mulambazo, then let me start off with you. Can South Africa at this point afford a rapid transition away from coal? And from your reading, where do we sit as a country right now on this debate?
Okay, let me start here, Cathy. The country has got a white paper on energy policy of 1998, which supports energy mix. So in essence, I don't want to say can the country afford to move from this to that. I want us to actually move away from the fact that from conversations about coal versus renewables. Let's also be aware that we have policies that are in place, which these policies were promulgated, or the policy itself was promulgated in 1998. And thereafter, the country has got strategic energy policy plans, which also supports the energy mix. So in essence, what I'm trying to say is that even though we understand and know that the country has to actually transition from carbon-emitting energy sources towards cleaner sources, but then that cannot be done in a short space of time. This has to be actually executed in a responsible manner. So the how part, it's what the country then should be discussing.
It's interesting that you say this should not be a debate about coal versus renewables, and yet that is often how the conversation is had, including in how government speaks about the transition too.
The government is in support of energy transition, and the government is actually not supporting coal. Not on the fact that it's coal versus renewables, but then we have to actually decarbonize as a country towards cleaner energy sources, which is the reason then why we've got regulations which are in place, which is the reason why currently you see that Eskom has managed to also introduce IPPs into their energy generation division. So the country, I think this has been. That's why the reason why I was saying that let's not discuss coal versus renewables. It's because the energy mix context is embedded into our policies, which was promulgated in 1998 and not in 2026 or 2019.
Chilizi, let me come to you and get your sense. Of course, if you go to workers and you go to communities that are highly dependent on the value chain coming out of coal, for them, this very much seems like a debate of coal versus, or, your more traditional energy sources versus renewables.
Yes, of course. I think from our point, that should be our entry point of discussion, in that we do not see a reason why we should switch from the coal-fired power station and go to the renewables while coal is a natural resource in abundance in our country. And further to that, Cathy, you find yourself puzzled by the manner in which this government is imposing these renewables, while on daily basis, Richard's coal terminal is actually exporting coal outside the country. Is that renewables only are applying to South Africa, while we are exporting coal to China, India, and many other countries? So there is no rationale in that regard, and we are saying, to us, this is a socio-economic matter which can't just be resolved by switching off to the renewables, because that will also leave the burden to government as to how are people going to have source of income if we are to erode what is providing the livelihood to many in South Africa.
Although, Chilizi, in fairness, as Dr. Mohlahlana has mentioned, we have the white paper that has been published. We have the integrated energy resources plan and the updated version that have been published. And all of those speak to the energy mix of the country. So none of these things should be taking industry by surprise. The government has been honest about how it plans to secure South Africa's energy future.
Honesty should not compromise the livelihood of the people. Whatever white power or energy integrated policy should also take into account how is the society going to be at the end of the day. So you do not have a policy and go on and implement it because we told you. At the end of the day, it leaves people unemployed. So there is no rationale in that particular sense. So our point is to say, how do we balance the two, where we can have energy available and at the same time at the lower cost? We find that we have coal as a natural resources. So there is no reason that compels us to move to any other, irrespective of the policies that are in place, because we are looking at the repercussions of it being implemented. What will be the case thereof?
Dr. Mohlahlana, when we look at the situation in South Africa, unfortunately, the case study that has been really one that many have been watching has been coming out of Komati and what has happened there, and the fact that we are seeing a failure of the transition, not because the transition in and of itself has failed, but largely because it was supposed to be a model for how this transition can and perhaps should take place when the power station there closed its doors in 2022 after 60 years of operation. But the reality that has left the community with has been devastating.
That's correct, Cathy. I think I agree with Mr. Mataba or Chilizi. The missing link in our policy planning is then the socio-economic impact of then the energy planning that we have. So I think when I was saying let's move away from coal versus renewables, it's because we can then say, how then can we start to focus on promulgating energy policy plans that are inclusive of socio-economic impacts on energy planning? So this means then that you'll have the Department of Social Development and Higher Education, which should be highly involved in energy planning of the country, so that we don't actually see the same that has occurred with when it comes to then the job losses that we have experienced in decommissioning the coal power stations. So I think that's where the conversation should actually go to now, instead of us focusing on coal versus renewable energy.
But this is part of what Chilidzi and the workers are afraid of. This is part of what I might say that they don't want, because of the uncertainty that it presents for them in the future and the future of the workforce.
That's correct. But then remember, if then we have policies and regulations as to how then that risk of job losses will actually be taken care of. Let's say when you are in the coal industry, or whereby you have got a coal workforce, where the country is actually going to actually put that coal workforce. Are we going to go for upskilling, and which new industries can then the country introduce that workforce to, so that we don't have job losses? So that's why I'm actually saying that the country needs to start focusing on promulgating policies that are inclusive of socio-economic impacts on energy, so that we know that the coal workforce will actually transition to another industry instead of then the coal industry. So that's where the actual conversations of the country when it comes to energy challenges that we have should actually be discussing at this moment in time.
Chilidzi, is this what you and workers are discussing?
Not at all. Even if you were to say you are to have an alternative to employment currently that is provided by coal power station, you are not going to find those things in the renewables and so on and so forth. So our view is much more easy and simple, that we cannot be able to switch to any renewables for that matter, irrespective of the policy, looking at the socio-economic impact. But maybe to qualify what I want to say, Cathy, is that it has nothing to do with renewables. I can tell you that if African leaders were to be united and speak about renewables in the true sense of renewables, Africa can generate power that can cover the whole of Africa using the Congo River by using what we call hydropower station. That, at least if that was an agenda, one would say it's a fair agenda. But if it is only targeting South Africa with more coal as natural resources, it does not make sense, Kathy.
Chilidzi, do you not believe that by resisting, the policy and resisting even the idea of any kind of transition to renewables, that you're not actually dealing with the situation at hand, and you're leaving workers at a disadvantage, because examples like Komati will then continue to happen, and workers will find themselves in that kind of position?
We don't think so, because even if you were to switch off to any other source of energy, there is no source of energy that can employ magnitude like Eskom power station does as we speak now. So the route that we are taking, it is neither good for us as workers, because wherever, if we go to windmill and so on and so forth, any other form of generation of power, it is not going to get sufficient number and reduce unemployment in the country.
Let me bring in Cynthia Moyo, who's with Greenpeace Africa. Cynthia, you of course have long been campaigning for renewables to be onboarded at a much more rapid rate in the country than they have been. You've heard already the two sides of the conversation so far. Your view?
Good morning, Cathy, and good morning to the listeners at home. Yes, I've been listening to the conversation, and honestly, Cathy, the truth is that coal is not keeping South Africa alive. it is actually making South Africa sick and calling it energy security. I personally have stood in communities in Mpumalanga, Cathy, where the sky turns brown before the school bell rings. Where we see a grandmother waking up at 3 a.m. just struggling to breathe, where we have lots of children in the schools in Mpumalanga carrying inhalers the way other children, carry lunch boxes to school. Not because it's a choice, but it's a matter of survival. So these are the communities, Cathy, that are on these margins of South Africa's energy story. And these are the communities that power South Africa. Their lungs are the price that we pay, for keeping the lights on. And nobody asked them if that was the price they were willing to pay. And our own constitution, has already answered this question that I think we are breaking down today. The courts have found that the air in Mpumalanga violates the right to life, not that right to clean energy, but the right to life. But yet here we are still debating whether we can afford to move.
Chilidzi?
Yeah. You see, it's interesting that you are prioritizing the clean energy, clean air, while people will also be subjected to hunger and poverty because there will be nothing to sustain themselves. And with Greenpeace Energy, Cathy, I feel sometimes unable to engage with them because in the consultation they had in Mpumalanga, they were paying people to say, this is what we want you to do for us. So I don't think that they are credible for my side because I was interacting with people on the ground and people took money because they wanted to get something at the end of the day. But they were told by Greenpeace Africa to say, this is what you must sign for, irrespective of whether they understand the content or not.
Cynthia, is that true?
I want to put that on record and very loudly that Greenpeace does not pay communities to protest. What we do is ensure that people who have been breathing poison for decades finally have a platform to speak. The anger in Mpumalanga is not manufactured, Cathy. It is lived. It is valid. You cannot pay someone to have asthma. You cannot pay a grandmother to wake up gasping at 3 a.m. That is real, and it deserves to be heard. The communities are speaking out are not paid. They are sick. There is a difference between mobilizing people and paying them. We mobilize. The coal industry is what has been paying to delay, paying to lobby, paying to keep things exactly as they are.
So when you talk about mobilizing, does that include any kind of payment?
None at all. None at all.
All right. So, Chilidzi, it appears that what you're saying is not grounded in fact, at least not according to Greenpeace Africa. And I wonder what we then also say about these implications, right? These very real health implications for communities who are living particularly downstream and that feel the effect of this coal mining and coal generation that perhaps parts of the country will simply never know.
And I may come back on that one. I'm not lying on what I'm saying. I've got people that I used to interact with that were called by Greenpeace. But in fact, in terms of the impact of the health impact of the coal power station, I think and believe that is not true, because we have people who have been born and bred here in Mpumalanga, Highveld region for so many years. Some of them, I was talking to one, she is 110 years old. She was born and bred here. So that analysis of Greenpeace is actually aimed to sway us into their direction, to say we will raise health issues and so on and so forth. And that is not true on the ground. You come here in Mpumalanga, Wheatbank and Middleburg, which is the area that has more coal-powered power station. You will not find that. That's a theory. It's not in practical.
Okay. Doctor,
and maybe just to land, Cathy, if you were to counter the issue of air pollution, you don't only have to switch off into the renewables. You can also apply tactics of planting trees next to the coal-powered power station, which will reduce that thing significantly. And I'm talking about something that has been researched. Why are we only pushed into one direction?
All right.
Because it is aimed to gain profit for some.
Chilidzi, we're going.
Can I come in, Cathy?
Who wants to come in?
It's the Cynthia. Can I please come
All
in?
right, Cynthia,
because
unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. It's time for me to take the latest news headlines. It's just after 8:30.
Good morning, I'm Anne Musa. In the headlines, senior ANC officials, including the party's president Cyril Ramaphosa, are this morning expected to hold a media briefing at Luthuli House in Johannesburg on the ANC's local government action plan. Suspended police organised crime unit member Fanny Nkosi's bail application is expected to resume in the Pretoria North Magistrates Court this morning. The SAPS Matlanga Commission task team arrested him following a raid at his home in Pretoria North earlier this month. And suspended Chief Financial Officer Gareth Mnisi will this morning return to testify before the Matlanga Commission. He's accused of tender manipulation in the procurement of security services for the city of Tshwane. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very slow into Pretoria. Your three big routes, Esky and Petheli, Paul Kruger, Johan Haynes, all jammed coming in from the north in towards the city centre. You will be asked to queue on the N14 this morning, Krugersdorp Highway, just past the R55 Pretoria West exit, so that's holding you up through to Brockfontein. And the Bike 1 North, M2 West still solid, getting up through the Crown interchange area in towards Braamfontein and Parktown. Breakdown at Cliffdale on your way to Pietermaritzburg, you know what that means, an immediate queue backing up to Keyridge area. The rest of Durban easing up quite nicely this morning. Cape Town, a lot of congestion going into the Stellenbosch area. There's no traffic lights right in the central part, R44 at Dorp Street, but getting there, if you're coming from Somerset West, there's a crash near Techno Park and then a crash at Van Reda before you get to sort of Dorp Street. So it's all heavy on that R44. Adam Tusk coming up off Polka Drive, Baden Powell, that's heavy as well. Crash on the R44 Broadway Boulevard at Somerset West at the N2, so there's some pressure there. And just a lot of congestion this morning around Khayelitsha, Mfoleni, the N2 inbound off-ramping to Nyanga, Mannenberg, Danafontein, Klipfontein Road. It just seems to be an impact of yesterday's heavy rain, having left some flooding disruption in those areas. Southern suburbs are heavy. M3 inbound from Constantia being held all the way to a crash at Hospital Bend, and a collision on Platterkloof Road at the N7, holding traffic coming through from the Platterkloof side down through to Crendell Circle and in towards that crash scene. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sport with Zai Khan.
Oh, Zakai, the minute we start talking Orlando Pirates and them climbing up to the top of the Premiership, of course, some way, somehow, it must lead to a derby.
Yes. And you know what? Being top of the log is nice, but ask any Kaizer Chiefs fans and they'll tell you that means nothing when it comes to a derby. So it's all about form.
Why must you always be shady, Zai? I mean, we've come out of a week where we've had 4-5 consecutive wins, but you must always just throw in a little something there for the Kaizer Chiefs fans.
Pressure is real, you know what I'm saying? It's a very emotional, this derby, you know. We got to know that and the nerves are already wired right from the get-go. So we'll go to the Orlando Pirates camp. They say they're not just winning, they're evolving into one of the most dangerous attacking sides, especially after their 3-0 win over Amazulu. Coach Abdusalam Wadu crediting the team's tactical flexibility and ability to adapt in-game as a key factor behind their dominance. He says it's all part of a clear game model.
It's daily. You have to train your team, and to, like I said before, we just don't have only one philosophy of playing, and we teach them all the week. In our game model, you need to understand our principles when we are building.
All right, Richards Bay now, their resurgent in the Betway Premiership is facing its toughest test. After climbing closer to the top 8, they had a hard-fought win over TS Galaxy. The KwaZulu-Natal side turned their attention to the defending champions. Mamelodi Sundowns head coach Ronnie Gabriel says his side believes they can compete with the best.
We're expecting a tough encounter against Mamelodi Sundowns. They're in the final in Africa and they're also trying to get into the top position in the league. However, we got our own targets, we've got our own mandate, and we'll have to go play the game and not play the opponents. So, end of the day, it's about us pleasing our home supporters, getting a positive result back home.
On to tennis now. Arthur Fields back in the winner's circle. The 21-year-old Frenchman claimed his first ATP Tour title in 18 months with a composed straight sets win over Andrei Rublev at the Barcelona Open final. And Spain's John Rahm cruised to a 6-shot victory at the Live Golf event in Mexico City, firing a final round 64 to finish 21 under par. Rahm bounced back from a disappointing Masters with a dominant display, while his team, Legion 13, also claimed the team title. And ladies golf, Joburg ladies winner Agatha Lenny said she had to dig deep after a rain delay to secure victory over South Africa's Cassandra Alexander and Australia's Kirsten Rudley. Lenny sealed the win with a birdie in the final hole to claim the second ladies European Tour title.
Yeah, I thought on 18 I made par on my 4th round, and I thought I'm going to be second because Cassandra is going to be minus 20, but unfortunately for her, she wasn't, and I was able to get into the playoffs. I was very happy, and I had the mindset of trying to do my best on the playoff.
That's your sport on the National Briefing. Check back for more. That's around 12:30 with John Hedeka. I'm Zai Khan.
SABC2 is bringing the heat. New shows, new faces, and stories that hit home, like the one I'm in called Pimville. And that's where you can catch me, Michelle Masalagai, every Monday to Friday at 9 p.m. Live in every beat, the pulse of SA.
If you drive an older car, you've got to hear this. For his 2014 Chevrolet Sonic, 68-year-old John chose Outsurance Essential Car Insurance because his claims get paid out in cash and he chooses his own panel beater. For these and many more benefits, John pays only 391 Rand a month. Get Outsurance Essential Car Insurance today for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 Rand. SMS CAR to 43185. That's CAR to 43185. Outsurance, licensed insurer and FSP. T's, C's and information online.
Call SAFM now on 086 000 2032.
8:39, you're listening to the National Briefing. We'll be bringing some of your calls on the various matters we've covered on the show this morning. The number to dial for our studio line 086 000 2032. That's 086 000 2032. On the WhatsApp voice note line, you can send those through on 0614 104 107. That's 0614 104 107. Let me start in Bloem. Bramoro, good morning.
Good morning, my big lady. How are you?
Good, go for it.
Thank you. Firstly, the management of SAFM should please come back to the station and tell us why they are not extending the sport hours on the show. Every Monday to Friday is only 1 hour for sports, which is 7 to 8. We are demanding for more extra hours. And then the weekend also, there is no sports. World Cup is coming. SAFM should give us sports over the weekend. Now, back to my main issue. The court verdict, which should allow RAF to give road accident fund to illegal or undocumented migrants, is welcome. But my suggestion, advice to the state would be, if suppose Bramoro is illegal, undocumented, and I'm qualified to benefit from the RAF should forcefully inform Home Affairs to document me, which they will take part of the money to pay for that. It should be wrong for them to give the money, whereas I'm illegal, I take the money and I still remain illegal or undocumented in the country. I don't support illegality. I don't support a migrant or a foreigner to remain in South Africa without proper documents. I don't support that. And I don't support the state refusing to pay illegal foreigner who has contributed towards RAF, because there are some illegal foreigners who are also buying petrol. They pay those levies imposed on it. But there should be two partnership, which is RAF and then Home Affairs. By force, if you are illegal, before we give the money to you, make sure you document yourself. If possible, even 10,000, 20,000, etc. should be taken from that money, given to Home Affairs. So Home Affairs will document that person. We don't have to always keep on talking about illegality, illegal foreigners, undocumented, whereas we are not finding solution to resolve that crisis. I'm sure you have a question for me.
Bramoro, is that not coming in via the back door, though?
It is not coming from the back door, because if we don't do it this way, then there is no way there will be motivation for illegal or undocumented foreigners to get proper documents. They will just do as they please, because now they know, oh, I'm illegal, I'm so qualified for RAF, I'm qualified for UIF, I'm qualified for maybe this SRD grant. So nothing is going to motivate them to go for that. You understand? We are human beings. If you put restrictions on us, we are going to abide by it.
Okay.
Hence, I'm a foreigner myself, although I'm not illegal. I'm a permanent residence holder, waiting for my ID to be issued. I don't know when Home Affairs will issue to me, but I still stand on SAFM to advocate that there should be a comprehensive approach to document illegal, undocumented migrants. Spain last week has granted amnesty to illegal foreigners in Spain, giving them documents, provided you don't have criminal record. Spain is not bigger than South Africa. Spain doesn't have more credible leaders than South Africa. We can also do a similar thing.
Bramoro, you're out in bloom. Let's leave it there. I guess the point is more around when one now is applying, right, or making a claim to the Road Accident Fund, that given as the court ruling stands, you can't be disqualified simply because you're not undocumented. So then why not let it be almost a forced documentation process if you are to be given any monies? Anonymous, you're in Middleburg. Good morning.
Thank you, tell you.
Wow, go for it.
Let me go for it. Cathy, the issue of pollution in the Highveld region, in the Highveld area, in Witbank, Middelburg, Hendrina, and other close areas, it's real, né? But what I've seen is that these organizations, the Greenpeace, there are many, there are many, and they are milking this situation. They are playing with the poor people. They mobilize poor people in the townships when people are at work. Those people are unemployed, especially women and youth that are unemployed, for them to join these organizations. But there's too much corruption there. There's a lot of money, and the money is free-flowing. I was in that space.
Anonymous, there's nothing fundamentally wrong with mobilizing people, i.e. getting them to join an organization or to support a cause. What have you seen that particularly then would fall under what you're describing, flow of money, perhaps some wrongdoing that is taking place?
These people are given they're given money to mobilize. They organize events, the catering is there, food is free flowing, so they are given money to do all those things under the pretense of saying they just want to cater for the communities. But it's not just for that only. These people get flown around the country, they attend conferences in Cape Town, and where money is free flowing from government. And from government, it's from the organizations, the international organizations that are pumping money there for the renewables. And I can tell you, it's not going to end well, because they're just mushrooming, these organizations. They are mushrooming around the Highveld area just because they now know that there's a lot of money involved there. We've seen it. We were part of it. And as soon as you have a dissenting voice on those issues, they don't call you anymore.
Okay. Well, I'd want for you to give us more information. Anonymous, I'll put you back through to our producers, coming there with a view that supports what Chilizi Mataba of the National Union of Mine Workers said during the debate earlier. Somebody else says, good morning, Cathy. On the RAF, once the lid is open, you will see flooding of risk takers and the stats are going to be doubled. And that's in relation to the number of those that are actually claiming from the Road Accident Fund. The statistics that Songezo Zibi shared with us earlier was that 3 to 4% of those claims are currently claims from foreign nationals or non-migrants. And of course, or non-nationals rather, and the concern that some South Africans have raised today is that what happens when you then open the open room, as this ruling by the Constitutional Court, by the Supreme Court rather, of Appeal has done, and saying, all means that everybody in South Africa who applies should be considered eligible to claim from the Road Accident Fund.
The South African Police Services has always been like this, even during apartheid days. Hence, we still have cases that have not been resolved. It's a system. Yes, there are good policemen and women, but there is a system.
Good morning. On the topic of Road Accident Fund, undocumented foreign nationals are not even supposed to be in the country. So what legal route do they have to claim? They are not even supposed to be here. It is our tax money that is being abused, and we are not happy about that.
Good morning, Sis Cathy. This is Admatebola. There is no way that Bramoro can tell us that illegal foreigners are contributing through buying of petrol. We don't care. They are buying petrol just to do their stuff. We don't care about that. If you are illegally foreigners, you don't have to belong to RAF. And this country, we all know that if you're going to other countries, there's a lot of things that they are looking at. Where are you going to stay? What are you going? And then insurance and all that. Bramoro must think about that. Good morning, this is Agmatebola.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
An urgent alert for travellers in and out of Kruger Park using the Orpen Gate. The R531 between Acorn Hook and Orpen Gate has been closed to through traffic, and that's due to a section of that roadway that has collapsed over the weekend. So if you need to go Orpen Gate and you were going to go in or out from Acorn Hook area, probably a good idea to reevaluate that. You won't get through. That's a massive collapse. You can see a picture of that up on our X.com feed at Traffic SA. Otherwise, we're still queuing on the N3 north to Heldon Ace in Joburg. Mike 1, Boysons through Parktown stays heavy. The Mike 1 into Sandton very slow as well. Both ways this morning. South from Woodmead, north from Melrose. Some real problems getting off the highway and into Sandton via Grayston Drive. N14 is eased on the Krugersdorp Highway as you make your way up in towards Brockfontein interchange this morning. It was heavily backed up just past Pretoria West exit, but that's all clear. Durban easing up nicely, with the exception, if you're on your way out to Pietermaritzburg, stationary vehicle, usual spot, Cliffdale, usual queue, heavy queue, pushing back to Key Ridge. You know how bad that can be. It is like that this morning. At Cape Town, the main road, a lot of pressure between Muizenberg and Fishhook. There's some flooding in the Cork Bay area, and then some real heavy congestion around the Clovelly traffic lights. Also, the N2 inbound, still queuing towards the Borchards Quarry off-ramp. There's some serious flooding after weekend rains on that off-ramp into Nyanga, so that stays heavy. Crash on the R44, Broadway Boulevard at the N2 bridge coming out of Strand. That's quite heavy. And 2 crash scenes and some faulty traffic lights going into Stellenbosch on the south side. So coming up the R44, the crash near Techno Park, crash near Funreader, and then traffic lights are out R44 at Dorp Street. So that whole central Stellenbosch area, very heavy this morning. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
Exciting news, South Africa. SABC TV Licenses has partnered with Capitec to make paying your TV license simple, affordable and accessible. If you're a Capitec client, sign into the app and click on Transact. Next, select Pay Bills, then click Pay At and enter your reference number to complete your payment. It's as easy as that. You'll receive instant SMS confirmation. Now you can keep your stories alive and your screens shining bright. TV licenses, pay yours, make a difference.
This Freedom Month, we reflect, we remember, and we celebrate how far we've come. 30 years into democracy, South Africa continues to shape a future grounded in justice, equality, and opportunity for all. Under the theme, Freedom and the Rule of Law. 30 years of democratic citizenship. SAFM will bring you all things freedom, the voices, the stories, and the conversations that matter. Join us as we honor the journey and explore what freedom means today. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Call SAFM now on 086 000 2032.
8:52, you're listening to the national briefing. I think what we can do is maybe squeeze in one or two more callers before we get into our final segment, Built in Mzansi. Khotso, you're in Malutapofung. Good morning, Khotso.
Goeiemôre Cathy Mohlahlana. Hoe gaan dit aus Cathy?
Khotso.
Aus Cathy, here in Free State, we are facing a serious problem, aus Cathy. Aus Cathy, Mkolisi Tukwana was the last hope of the ANC in Free State. That is why Cyril Ramaphosa, he managed to remove him because of we reached the point whereby the ANC is exiting a political space. Here in Malutiapofung last week, they appoint the guy by the name called Tumelo Ditebe to be the mayor of Malutiapofung. Ausketi, that one we don't call it appointment. A person who steals the money from Joburg, you remove from Joburg, you bring it in Malutiapofung to be the mayor. That one we don't call it appointment, Ausketi. We call it a donation. That guy is a person who is going to steal the money of the Malutiapofung and channel it to his family and their friends. Ausketi, we are facing a serious problem here in Malutiapofung. But now we are waiting for the IEC to announce the date for the election in order to remove the ANC in Malutiapofung. It's obvious that Gilbert Mukoso, once he takes over here in Malutiapofung, where he started, when Vusi Chabalala was a mayor, is going to begin again.
Okay.
We are in serious problem, Auskezi. And also the SABC has a serious problem here in Malutiapofung. Serious problem.
Khotso, what we'll do is that we'll put Malutiapofung on the list of municipalities for us to look into in the Municipal Watch feature.
Cathy Mohlahlana is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
But let's get into Built in Mzansi, our feature that highlights innovators, solutions, and general stories of South Africans who are building their economy every single day, somewhere in the background. Joining us this morning is Paul Rowett. He is the CEO of Tsolo Storage Systems. Good morning, Paul. Thank you for your time. Is it tsolo.io? Is it tsolo.io? I'm not sure given the spelling, but tell us about your organization and what you do.
Morning, Cathy. Thanks for having me. It is tsolo.io.
our organization specializes in building AI storage, data storage for the revolution that's happening in South Africa and across the world at the moment.
And talk to us about, this idea of engineers and developers who are building this computing and data storage manufacturing company. Why is it so significant that this is happening in South Africa?
That's a great question. So first, just a little bit of a backstory. The founders of Tsolo met while working on the SKA project, formerly known as the Meerkat project, which is a globally renowned science project. And those who don't know, it's based in Carnarvon, and it's pushing the barriers of space exploration. South Africa was chosen globally to represent largely because of our position, and the science and data community had to encounter some serious challenges. And with those challenges, some serious innovations were made. And the founders who met there decided that they have innovated, on such a great scale that we should commercialize this, and South African businesses should also be able to leverage some of these innovations. And a little bit more about these innovations. When innovating in a place like South Africa, we call it constraint-based innovation. So you have constraints on electricity, data connectivity, et cetera, so some of the innovations that the team is producing now, all locally in our offices in Cape Town, are largely around this constraints that we face in South Africa.
So at a very practical level then, Paul, for those, you talk about the commercialization of some of these innovations and ideas to businesses in South Africa. So when somebody comes to you, what problem would they need to be trying to solve?
Yeah, it's a great question. Data storage and data lifecycle is becoming more and more fundamental to businesses, especially as we encounter this new wave of AI. And generally, it's a practical business question. Most businesses, need to provide cost-effective storage that is quick and caters for the needs of their customers at a relatively cost-effective basis. Now, most South African businesses, in fact, 84% of South African businesses, use hosted solutions that are generally provided by large US and Europe-based providers. In South Africa, we don't have any locally produced storage and data solutions for South African businesses to choose, and Tsolo is providing that for them.
Wow. And when you think about what's possible for the future, Paul, speak to us very briefly about that, because I imagine that it'll also be good for South Africans to have credible local options, right?
Absolutely. That are more cost effective. You have local support. You have somebody that you can call if something's going wrong or if you need additional services. But most fundamentally, we want to form the backbone for South Africa and Africa's AI evolution. It's becoming more and more important as we move into this world of AI that businesses feel empowered to make valuable choices for their customers and feel that they can be flexible with those options. And that's very difficult to do if you're reliant on dollar-based counterparts for all your services.
Paul Rowett, the CEO of Tsolo Storage Systems.io. So the name of the organization, Tsolo.io, that's TSOLO.io. All right, that then brings us to the end of our conversation this morning on the National Briefing. We'll be back with you again tomorrow between 6 and 9 a.m. Up next, the Daily Discourse with Joanne Joseph.
In our top stories, ANC to brief media on local government plan and suspended Sergeant Nkosi's bail application to resume. Good morning. Senior ANC officials, including the party's president,